Peter, I think we're good to go.
Okay. Let me call the meeting to order. You do a roll call. Trustee Zuniga is excused for this evening with some urgent family matters that she's attending to. Trustee Griffin.
Present.
Trustee Land.
Present.
Trustee Dwyer.
Present.
And I'm here. So 4 board members are present this evening for the meeting. Welcome, everyone. This is our last board meeting before graduation and the end of classes. It's amazing that the year has gone by so quickly. Superintendent Skelly, maybe you could lead us in Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have Spanish. We have a Spanish interpreter for the meeting this evening, Enrique Montaldo. For those of you who would like to attend the meeting in Spanish, that option is available. Enrique, would you communicate that for us this evening?
Buenas tardes, tenemos a nuestro intérprete de español para la reunión de esta noche. Para aquellos de ustedes que quisieran asistir a la reunión en español, esta opción está disponible. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. So if you wish to view closed captions of this meeting, you can view the meeting on the San Mateo Union High School District Board meeting YouTube channel. The link to the YouTube channel can be found on our website. If you want to view the captions in English, you can do that as we live stream the meeting tonight. If you want to view the captions in a variety of other languages, you can do that if you want to watch the meeting after this meeting has ended. Viewers may request additional accommodations by calling 650-558-2201. In closed session this evening, the board, upon motion of Trustee Lise Dwyer and seconded by Trustee Land, approved the special education settlement with a vote of 4-0. Again, Trustee Zuniga was absent from closed session this evening. In closed session, the board, upon motion of Trustee Griffin and seconded by Trustee Land, moved to postpone the expulsion hearing of 2 cases by a vote of 4-0, with Trustee Andre Zuniga being absent from closed session this evening. I want to announce also that this evening we are pulling from the consent agenda J21 at the request of staff, and it's going to be brought back at a future meeting. And item N2 is also being pulled at the request of staff, and that will be brought forward at the June 9th board meeting. So this is a public meeting of the San Mateo Union High School District Board of Trustees. If you would like to make a comment about an agenda item or during the public comment section at the beginning of the agenda, please use the raised hand feature on Zoom to be recognized when invited to do so by the board president for each item on which you wish to comment, and you will be admitted to speak during the public comment period. The board president will call on you. Please note that comments are limited to 3 minutes. The board president may increase or decrease the time allowed for public comment depending upon the topic and the number of persons wishing to be heard. Do we have any public comments this evening on this would be on non-agenda items at this point?
No, we do
No,
not.
President Hammond.
No.
Okay. Are there any board comments this evening? Yes, Trustee Land.
Actually, I was going to do a point of order first. I just, actually, point of information. When you said to take off consent, was it J21 or J22? Sorry.
J21.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any comments at this time, sorry.
Okay. Do any other board members have comments this evening? Trustee Griffin.
Okay, you're breaking up, Peter. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I normally don't take a lot of time, and I'm going to take a little more time, which probably means 2 minutes rather than 1 minute. But I actually got an invite, and I sat through the finals presentations at Hillsdale High School at the Ethnic Studies class, and it was really interesting. And I can't remember enjoying a class as that. Actually, it was 2 classes, and Candace Thomas teaches the class and actually I think does a good job. And they had to put together PowerPoint presentations. And I remember first times I was using PowerPoint, and I'm sure it was a daunting project. Their job was varied, but they talked about core values, and they talked about the school values, their own values, where they overlapped. They talked about the positives, and they gave good feedback on the negatives. And then I actually got to speak, and some of the issues, just bullet points. Boy, we really need to look at the gender neutral bathrooms, because the bathroom access appears to be like a real issue with passing periods and the numbers and the distance people have to travel. There were comments that guidance was underutilized. I think everybody really appreciated the advisory periods, and some of one of the key issues was how to bring marginalized students in and make them feel involved and accepted as part of the school population. And then there were a couple of comments related to life skills, and that we don't have enough real life kind of, how do you do this? How do you do that? So these are thoughts for going forward. Now, I think their overall theme just turned out to be inclusivity and respect. And I think they were looking for it, and they were glad to give it. And it was time well spent, plus the fact that I hadn't been out in campuses for fear of the 40 strains of COVID that are running around. And then the other thing, I actually spoke to the classes, and I talked to them about the how we had adopted and supported the ethnic studies program, and also our huge investment in the anti-racism equity program. And one of the things that they want to see everybody get, we all got better attitudes. We're all learning. And I explained that a lot of the professional development dealt with differences and how to help people and how to learn to work with people that don't look like you or don't talk like you, or et cetera, et cetera. So it was a good session. Probably, other than graduation next week, probably the highlight of my school year. So.
Thank you. Any other comments before we move forward? Trustee Dwyer.
I just want to say that I did go to San Mateo High School for a little short visit when they did their senior day, and I just happened to be there actually. And I hadn't been in the theater, I hadn't been on the campus, and it was a really great feeling to be back out there and to see so much action. And also, because of the Yonder pouches, The seniors were sitting listening to a jazz performance by fellow students with their very capable teacher. And they were listening, and they had their masks on mostly, and they were paying attention. And it dawned on me that none of them had a cell phone, and that what a great thing that was, and how none of them seemed upset about that, that they were very, just participating in the moment and enjoying senior day. And the music was very sophisticated. So it was really interesting, because you would think they would be looking more for rock or rap or whatever, but this was really good jazz, and they were clapping and applauding and just really enjoying, their peers. The bathroom issue, I do want to piggyback on that. I saw that on the contracts tonight, Linda Carlton's department has so much work that they're doing. So I don't want to we need to do this too. But it would be really good if they did an annual check on all the inside bathroom doors to make sure that they all actually have the locks in place. They have the hardware in there, and that people can actually have the privacy and lock the little bathroom stall so that other people don't come in. Because I think that's kind of part of this whole thing. And I did note we're missing a few here and there as I traveled around the campus. But thank you very much.
Trustee Land.
Sorry, I was reminded of a few things. So, but I'm glad that Bob had a good time, and
Yeah.
I appreciated listening to that, because I think it's very important.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to say that I was at Burlingame to say a farewell to Principal Belzer with the PTO. Dr. Scully was there, and I was really glad to be part of that, to hear the kind words that the parents had to say for him and what had been going on. So it was really kind of a touching goodbye at the last PTO meeting that they had. So I wanted to add my farewells to that.
Okay.
Thank you. So we have no communications to the board this evening. Moving to recognition, we have a proclamation recognizing May as Asia Pacific Islander History Month. Who
I'd
is
like
taking
Yeah, are
the
we
lead?
presenting that, or is an approval? How are we doing that?
It's an approval of the proclamation.
I'd like to, is Dr. Scully introducing, or I'm
Supposed to say
sorry.
something.
Right, usually.
I'm happy to say something. We're bringing this, I think Trustee Land asked us to do this, and we are very pleased to bring this for your approval. We appreciate the contributions of our Asian Pacific Islanders in terms of making this country what it is. And tonight's an opportunity for us to recognize that. And so we bring this to you tonight.
Okay, I'd like to move approval of the proclamation.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Trustee Land and second by Trustee Dwyer. Trustee Griffin, how do you vote?
Aye.
Trustee Land,
Aye.
Trustee Dwyer,
Aye.
and I vote aye also. So that proclamation is approved by a vote of 4-0.
So if I could, President Hanley, we also at the last board meeting, if you remember, you adopted a resolution to acknowledge the week of the 15th through the 21st, which is actually this week, as Classified Employee Week. And I want to take a minute to recognize our 500 classified members who keep our district running. These folks are the glue that keeps us together. And their work is certainly student-centered and at the heart of everything we do. And we owe them a debt of gratitude here as well. So we appreciate their work during what is actually their week, even though you approved it last meeting.
Thank you. I think that's certainly warranted, and they've been particularly essential during the past 2 years with all we've gone through with the pandemic. Their work's been critical to how the districts function. So consent agenda, J21 is pulled. Is there any other items that anyone wishes to pull from the consent agenda?
I move approval of the consent agenda minus J21, and I've read all the contracts.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from trustee Dwyer and a second from trustee Land. Trustee Griffin,
I vote aye, and I'll have a comment after.
okay. Trustee Land,
Aye.
trustee Dwyer,
Aye.
and I vote yes also. Trustee Griffin, you had a comment?
Yeah, our answering machine is loud enough, everybody can hear it, but, I'd be interested, 'cause I think when the e-waste thing, they were offering the computers to students, and I would be interested in finding out how many people availed themselves of that offer. Just, I think it's a good deal. I don't know how many people don't have super nice high-speed computers, but certainly I think it, they don't fit our needs, and they might be able to help some students get going on college or something. So if we could follow up on that, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll provide that information to the board.
Regular reports. Report of the superintendent.
Okay, as mentioned, we are headed down the final stretch here of the year. First of all, I'm really pleased to announce that with our San Mateo Union High School District Teachers Association, we've reached a tentative agreement. This is done before folks leave for next year, which is always our goal, to have negotiations wrapped up in time for folks to have some certainty about the results of that. We'll be bringing that agreement hopefully to you on May 9th. At this point, it includes a 4.5% raise for staff for next year. Our other bargaining units have a Me Too clause, so whatever is agreed to with the Teachers Association goes into their compensation as well. And another part of this is a $2,500 one-time payment to all staff who are working for the district on the day of the tentative agreement, which I believe was this Monday of this week. And this is in recognition for the folks' work during what has been just an unprecedentedly difficult time in the history of the district. And I think we've held together extremely well. I know other districts have had at least fraying, but we've remained solid. I think it's a tribute to the work we've all done this year. Everybody's been rowing in the same way, and it hasn't been easy at all. You've had tough board meetings. We've had tough conversations. We've had lots of different views, but we've held steady and we've done great things for kids. And I think this contract reflects the values the board has and the district leadership and the union about solving problems, working together, and then also making this the greatest place to teach and work in the area or anywhere for that matter. So we look forward next week to graduations. It's a busy time. I think we have 8 or 9 graduations this week. I plan to attend most of them unless I'm double booked. And they're just such exciting, wonderful times. Hopefully we'll have weather that is not too windy, not too hot, and perfect for worthy of the celebrations that we'll have for students who have to be really excited about what they've accomplished these past 4 years. It was mentioned that we're pulling the reclassification report. We'll bring that back to you on June 9th. We're pleased that this is an opportunity for us to sync up and reclass and look around the economic environment of the work that our staff do and bring people up to a level that reflects their skills, that looks at what other districts are doing, and then makes sure our district is at least highly competitive in that environment. Last week, we had a retirement celebration. Thank you, Trustee Lees-Dwyer, for coming. I thought it was a fun afternoon. We really enjoyed ourselves, and we, I think, recognized 170 plus years of service to the district in really fine fashion. Tonight, you'll be recognizing the first agenda item is introduction of my successor, Randall Booker. He and I have begun some conversations about the district. I plan to help him as he transitions and takes the baton here as much as I possibly can. That's what my predecessor did for me, and I plan to do that as much as I can. He'll be on campus tomorrow meeting with senior staff, and I think he'll learn a lot, and I know he's eager to do that, and has certainly done his homework as he begins that transition here. And so then on June 9th, so besides meeting Mr. Booker on tonight, you're also going to meet on May 9th some extraordinary educators that we're bringing in to fill positions that we have for the upcoming year. Some of those people we're asking you to approve tonight, and then we'll introduce you to them on June 9th. And I'm sorry that I won't have a chance to be working with them next year, but I feel really good about this and all the other people who I've been a part of hiring and bringing into the district over the past 7 years. I appreciated being with Ms. Dwyer at the retirement, and then also the senior event. And then I also had a chance to attend Night Moves, which was just a beautiful night at Hillsdale with the dance program there. Talk about a joyous event to cap off the end of the year. That was really good. Like Trustee Land, I was at Paul Belzer's going away event, which was beautiful. A beautiful event. And then I also was at Cappuccino as the PTO said goodbye to Principal Boyce, and I'll be there next week when we have a luncheon to thank all the staff there. At the next board meeting, I've asked Mr. Hawkins to bring some pictures of the progress on the outdoor athletic facilities at Cap and Mills. Those are super exciting. They're proceeding on budget and on time, and we're really excited to share that on May 9th as well. So that's the end of my report. Good things happening next week is just going to be fantastic. So we're looking forward to that.
Great, thank you. Do we have a student board member this evening?
No, President Hanley, we do not.
Okay. Let me have the report of the District Teachers Association.
Thank you. Good evening, President Hanley, members of the board, and district cabinet. First, this is just a joyous time of year. There's so much good that's going on right now. Students are excited, teachers are excited. Anyone outside of education usually approaches a teacher or an educator and says, boy, things must be really winding down right now. And of course, we all know that that's not the case. But it's always a combined experience of stress and urgency, but also a lot of joy and a lot of fun that we can look forward to in the next few weeks. I want to join Dr. Skelly in recognizing the classified folks. Our sisters and brothers in the Classified Association are essential to the work that we all do in supporting students. I often recognize them at times of the year where there are critical junctures, such as the start of school or the end of school, or particular circumstances where their work is seen by more than usual times. But you should also know that all of our members are so grateful to have the support of the classified staff, and we work in solidarity with them to do whatever we can to serve the students of this community. I welcome Mr. Booker to the district. I look forward to meeting him and learning how we can work together and collaborate again for the betterment of our students and the school community. As Dr. Skelly mentioned, we do have a tentative agreement. I can honestly say in my tenure in this position, which has been a few years, this has been one of the most efficient negotiations cycles that I can remember. And I need to recognize both the association team, but also the district team, not just the folks who are at the table, but the folks who were supporting the team at the table with information, with calculations. Mr. Hawkins provided a lot of input and support. So I do want to recognize that efficiency. And I always want to quote Trustee Lees Dwyer in that a good agreement usually makes everyone a little bit unhappy. So with that metric, this is a good agreement. So read into that whatever you may. But we are pleased moving forward. So pleased, in fact, that we are moving forward with a association membership vote. Next week, we will have a result of the membership ratification by the end of next week. And I appreciate Dr. Black and Mr. Hawkins in their efforts to expedite that process as well in moving forward with the AB 1200 process. Some of the pieces of the tentative agreement are notable. There were very few components of the agreement because, of course, this is a reopener, a mid-contract reopener negotiations. But as Dr. Skelly mentioned, salary and compensation were, of course, open. We look forward to discussing contributions to health benefits, as we always have with our collaborative joint committee for the January renewal. And the other few components of our agreement really were focused on addressing the needs of some of the students with the greatest needs in our district, namely ELD students, special ed, and of course, wellness and counseling. I believe we made progress in all of those areas if not in number, at least in philosophy and plans for moving forward. The last thing I'll mention is the financial situation in the district continues to improve. As we all know, this is late in the fiscal year for the county assessed valuation growth. It continues to creep up, and that's always good news for us on an ongoing basis and for the things that we want to do to improve the service to the community. As you know, the May revise is out in the state budget. It's just a draft, but if things go through, we should be in a very good position to be flexible and supportive for a lot of projects that we'd like to engage in. So again, thank you to the district team and for their support staff in finding an efficient negotiations resolution. And we look forward to the end of the school year. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, I think we have the report of CSEA Chapter 519 representative.
Hello and good evening, President Hanley, Dr. Skelly, members of the board, and everyone here tonight. I'm Jim Brock, our chapter president. With only 1 week of school left, the end of the year activities are in full swing. Award nights, goodbye rallies, finals, senior checkout, graduations next week. And we want to acknowledge all of the hard work our certificated and classified staff, as well as administrators and the board for keeping us moving forward through this transition year. We are also thankful for all the parents for their support, volunteering at the campuses with testing in the textbooks rooms and senior activity days. Thank you, parents. Lastly, thanks to all the members that joined us at our chapter barbecue. It was great to see us coming together. Zoom can be convenient, but nothing beats meeting in person. Of course, we were outside with good food and good company. Thank you and good night.
Thank you. Report of the San Mateo Adult School Teachers Association representative.
Good evening, President Hanley, Superintendent Skelly, and members of the board and cabinet. My name is Kelly Underwood Rosmus. I'm an active member of our CFT Local 4681 in for both our president and our vice president who are teaching this evening. First of all, I would like to recognize and appreciate the tireless work of the classified staff at San Mateo Adult School, especially during the pandemic. Unfortunately, we had several classified staff who retired either right at the beginning of the pandemic or just before the pandemic, which left us with a skeleton classified staff at the adult school. And so those staff who remained took on a lot more responsibility. And so I really want to appreciate their work always, but especially during the pandemic. I'd also like to, on behalf of our union, appreciate the work and leadership of Superintendent Skelly as he retires. We wish you well, and we appreciate the leadership and the wisdom that you have provided for our district. We also welcome our incoming superintendent, Mr. Booker, and look forward to working with him. Right now, we are in the second week of our summer term at the adult school. Our summer session is May 9th to July 15th. It's a 10-week session. And this term, we are continuing with our hybrid model, which means that each class is meeting 2 days online and 2 to 3 days in person, except for our very beginner English as a second language classes. We find that those students do best 100% in person. So a few of those classes are back to being 100% in person. And we have noticed at the adult school since we've been back on campus that we've had a major influx of immigrants. This was noted at the National Conference of the Coalition of Adult Basic Education. It is a national trend. Adult schools all over the country are seeing a major influx of immigrants and also seeing major teacher shortages. So we are facing similar dynamics at the adult school, especially with our immigrant population, the students who take the English as a second language classes, and especially at the lower levels, because we found that during the pandemic, those students with very little English or very low technical skills did not opt to take the online classes. And so now that we're back in person, we're seeing an influx of those students as well. Another thing that I would like to mention at the adult school is that our student volunteers are a very important part of our culture. We wouldn't be able to provide the welcoming support that we give our incoming students without our volunteers. We are planning our 7th annual volunteer appreciation event on June 7th at 10:30 a.m. and at 7 p.m. near the flagpole by the adult school portables. Everyone is welcome. And speaking of the volunteer program, which is so critical to the adult school culture, I would like to honor Marina Kravtsova, who is the creator of our volunteer program, creator and leader of our volunteer program. She is our English learner specialist and a former adult school student. She received an award at the statewide conference, the California Council of Adult Education, for excellence in classified support services. So a shout out to Marina for her excellent work. And finally, we have received a contribution from the Foster City Rotary Club, $1,500, and these funds are to support our student ambassador program and to help our students achieve workforce skills and experience. Our student ambassador program is part of our volunteer program. We take our students who have shown a real desire to serve other students in the school and serve the community and have shown leadership skills. And these students often present at statewide and national conferences. So our student ambassador and volunteer programs at the adult school are very strong and have a reputation statewide and nationwide. Finally, as we look forward to the fall term, our start date is August 15th. We are finally going to be returning to 100% in-person classes. However, we have seen at the adult school that online classes have served our adult population very well. So we have decided to create a new online program. So we will, starting in the fall of 2022, we will have 100% in-person classes as well as 100% online classes. We hope to have those two offerings for every class that we provide. And as was mentioned before, we hope to have enough teachers to respond to all our students' needs and not to have wait lists. We have had to, this term, because of teacher shortages, we have had to have students who would normally meet 4 nights a week, they're only able to meet 2 nights a week so that the same teacher can actually teach 2 different sections 2 nights a week to meet the needs of all the students that we have registering for our classes. So thank you very much to the board and to Superintendent Skelly for all your support at the adult school.
Thank you for your report. So moving to special reports and appearances. L1 is the approval of the employment contract for district superintendent. Let me just give a little bit of background. There's been a press release on this, but there may be some people watching and listening that haven't followed the whole process. We're bringing forward a contract for Superintendent Rhonda Booker from Piedmont Unified to be the next superintendent of San Mateo Union beginning on July 1 when Superintendent Skelly retires. We'll have an opportunity next month to express some appreciation for Superintendent Skelly for all the work that he's done here during his tenure. But tonight is really the culmination of many months long process, a very thorough process that began in February. The board really greatly appreciates the input that we have received from throughout the district. We had many attendees, I think over 80 that attended in-person roundtables, Zoom roundtables. We got 1,450 people submitted surveys and gave input through that vehicle. Leadership associates brought to us a very talented group of qualified candidates. Superintendent Booker is our choice from that pool of candidates. He has 25 years, more than 25 years of experience at all levels of education. As a high school teacher, a high school assistant principal and principal, and as an assistant superintendent. For the last 7 years, he has been superintendent at Piedmont Unified, where he's launched several innovative programs, a wellness program. And I think he's had, what impressed me, and I think my board colleagues, although they'll speak for themselves, a very student-focused approach and high expectations for all students. He's been heavily involved in special education as well as adult education. And he grew up in Burlingame. So this is somewhat of a homecoming as he returns to the principal, or returns to the peninsula. as we consider his contract, let me make a few required disclosures of the contract under state law. I have to verbally disclose the terms of the contract. His salary will be $295,000. He will receive health and life insurance and additional benefits that all district employees receive. He'll receive a cell phone allowance of $150 a month. He'll receive a transportation allowance of $200 a month, and he'll receive professional dues to 4 organizations. So that is the contract for Superintendent Booker. Is there any other comments from my colleagues that they would like to make before we take any public comments that anybody would want to make on the contract? Are there any public comments waiting to be heard?
No, President Hanley, there are not.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the contract?
I move approval.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion from Trustee Dwyer and a second from Trustee Griffin. Trustee Griffin, how do you vote?
Aye.
Trustee Land.
Aye.
Trustee Dwyer.
Aye.
And I vote yes also. So the contract is approved 4-0. Okay. The introduction now remains for Superintendent Booker, and a chance for you to be introduced to the district. Please,
Let him say something.
you have the floor.
Well, I think I'm going to give the floor back to Trustee Dwyer. I think she had a comment just now.
Well, you know what? I'll take it. I just want to say that in the interview process, I was very taken with new Superintendent Booker's level of energy and his commitment to the education of all students. He's looking for opportunities for everyone, and I feel like he's going to give us a fresh look. I think Superintendent Skelly has really taken us so far, and Superintendent Booker is coming to continue to move us as we look at how we can offer as much opportunity as possible to every student who comes in our door. And it's a big district and you're going to have your hands full. But I think that you will learn and grow with us. And I really appreciate the fresh perspective that you'll bring us. And I think you're really going to enjoy working with the people in this district. We have so many highly qualified and competent, capable people who you will enjoy working with. So I welcome you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I just want to thank everyone for the opportunity. Thank you so much, Trustee Hanley, the rest of the board, Superintendent Skelly and the cabinet. Everyone has been so welcoming and inviting. I don't even know where to start other than to say how humbled I am, how appreciative I am, how much I look forward to growing with the district, to encouraging staff, building up the futures of our students, getting to know people. We talked a lot about that in the interviews, how eager I am just to connect and build relationships. My leadership style is really about relational equity. I look so forward to building those relationships starting tonight and then definitely starting tomorrow as I meet staff. I'm going to have a hard time sleeping tonight. I know that. I'm so excited about coming tomorrow. I want to thank my wife, my family, all my colleagues, the board in Piedmont Unified. They've been so wonderful during this transition. It's really an honor for me to come back to the peninsula, all the way from San Bruno down to San Mateo and Foster City and everywhere in between. I can't wait. We've already done a number of tours up and down the peninsula, just checking out all the schools and getting excited. So Thank you to everyone. I am really looking forward to a long commitment. I'm looking forward to building relationships with our teachers and our classified staff, our administrators, our community members, our students, our empty nesters, everyone in the community for the betterment of our students. One of my biggest educational philosophies is raising up future leaders who think critically for the benefit of all. And I can't wait to do that here and continue that here in this wonderful district. So thank you so much. I'm really honored.
Well, we look forward to working with you, and we look forward to your leadership.
Greg and Peter have comments.
Yes.
I mean, Robert.
Trustee Griffin.
Well, Greg was first, so age before beauty.
Ooh, ouch, dude. Anyway, Superintendent Booker, welcome. We're really excited to have you here. I know we as a board, I know Trustee Zuniga is not able to join us, but I know she shares with our enthusiasm of bringing you on board. All the things that we talked about with equity and diversity and reaching out to the communities. I know that's going to be a top priority for you, and we really look forward to that. And Dr. Skelly, you really put us in a good place. I think you're going to be taking over a district that is in a great place, and you're just going to take us even further. So thank you so much, and we welcome you aboard.
Trustee Griffin.
Yeah, Superintendent Booker, I certainly want to welcome you. I look forward to working with you. I really like your energy and your enthusiasm. And I think Trustee Lees Dwyer had commented about your commitment for education for all. And I think that's really critical for this district. Your qualifications are outstanding. And the one thing I will say, I heard you cruising the peninsula, going from high school to high school. Do not forget that these high schools are connected to communities, and really get out there. I mean, this is not anything, it's not an admonition, it's not anything, except the communities are very varied, and they're active communities, and to the extent you can, and it will happen over time, get out there and start meeting some of the people in these communities. And if I had been on the board 3 years earlier, or if you had or 3 years younger, I would have been a trustee when you graduated from high school. Isn't that a terrible thought?
Age before beauty, my friend.
That's a good thought. That's actually a good thought, Bob. That's a very good thought. That's a good thought.
That's right. Well, again, I want to just say thank you to everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity and the faith and trust. I know and I understand the community is trusting me, my family, and all the work that we're going to do for San Mateo with the most precious thing there is, and that's the children. And I know the staff share in my commitment to doing what is right for all students. We will do what is right for all students, and we'll continue to work as hard as we can for the benefit of all students. So thank you again so much. I cannot wait for tomorrow morning where I get to come in and meet everybody, or at least start meeting people. I'm really, really excited. So thank you.
Great. And I know you're planning to try to spend several days between now and July 1st with us. And so I'm looking forward to that. And I know people are looking forward to meeting you and getting acquainted. So we'll move forward.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on. We can move on to L3, presentation discussion of the 21 to 24 LCAP actions and services.
I'm going to turn this item over to Dr. Kemke.
Good evening, and we do have a presentation to go along with this. This is the annual update of the actions and services of the Local Control Accountability Plan. And Mr. Simmons will join me for this presentation. This isn't the update of the metrics. This is around the goals and the action services that we had in our LCAP. So you can move on to the next slide. Oh, and I meant to say this as well. I don't think he's on anymore, but looking forward to meeting my new boss, Superintendent Booker. So I get to say that aloud too. So where we are in the process is this is the end of the first year of the 3-year strategic plan of the local control LCAP. And what we're going to look at tonight is just our priority areas and the actions within those priority areas. This is a required part of the LCAP process, is to take a look at what actions and services we set forth and what progress we've made after this first year. Go to the next slide. I think we all know by now what the local control accountability plan is, but it is the single district plan and intended to articulate our strategic goals. This last year, we incorporated all of our district goals into the one document. So this serves as our strategic plan, and it's aligned to our district's equity vision and mission. Go to the next slide. Thank you. So here's been our timeline this year. We're on May 20th. This is the annual update of the actions and services. You can go to the next slide. So a bit of what you'll see in the LCAP is what kind of engagement, stakeholder engagement we've done through the year to review the services and actions within the LCAP. We have an ongoing stakeholder committee of the Equity Advisory who has helped us through reviewing the actions services, given us feedback around those services, as well as even feedback on our metrics. We also did a community thought exchange that included responses from parents, students, and staff members to gather input around the top 3 things for the district to consider. Our district English Learner Advisory, DLAC, is quite active, as you know, and they presented to you recommendations in April that we also incorporate into our ongoing LCAP plan. We consult our SELPA over 3 meetings in the spring. We share out progress with our very active Black Parents Association that we'd done some feedback sessions in January and April. We also do survey through Panorama that include family, students, and staff surveys. And then we also have used our student equity team to give us feedback on these action and services. So this is a required part of the LCAP, where we reach out to the community to give us input on what progress we're making and share with them the progress we're making and gather any input on that. So from that input, we start to fill out our annual update on what progress we've made on those goals. You can go to the next slide. So what we're going to go through this evening are the 4 goals and just cover what progress we've made and the actions that we put under each one of those goals. If you remember, we have 4 goals within the LCAP: authentic relationships, safe and connected communities, inclusive, relevant learning for every student, and supporting, empowering staff. We continue to find these goal areas to be very helpful in guiding us towards getting closer to our equity vision and mission. You can go to the next slide. First goal is around authentic relationships. We have aligned metrics to this goal. Those are our Panorama survey data around students' relationship with teachers. We know that relationships are critical to student learning. And so this part of the actions and services, we'll talk a little bit about how we're developing students' relationships on campuses. Go to the next slide. So these are the things we set forth to do, one of them being increasing our staff diversity to ensure our students have diverse teachers and staff that are in front of them in the classroom. And we also talked about creating and expanding a site-based mentoring support programs, creating strategies to diversify our student organizations. That includes clubs, leadership. An action under there was to hire a district social worker specific to English learners. We also include the family engagement coordinators under this goal area, and then family engagement series, family education series. So this is our homegrown version of what we used to use PK for. So Dr. Showman and her family engagement coordinators created a family engagement series, and then initiates sessions in languages other than English and Spanish. And then our last action under this was to support our PTOs and in enacting some inclusion strategies to increase their diversity so that they're representative of their school body. So these are the actions we set forth in the LCAP. You can go to the next slide. And then here's our update to you all on our progress that we've made here. Dr. Black and much work in using an HR diversity consultant. We have done a lot of outreach to different programs to ensure that we have high quality applicants from diverse backgrounds that we can ensure that we bring forward to have in front of our students. This includes new interview processes, new hiring practices, new partnerships, and reimbursement for our classified staff. Our student success coordinators are being funded to support our schools in a tier 2 support, and they provide mentorship to a caseload of students. So that has increased students' access to relationships on campus. They are a very dynamic bunch. Mr. Simmons meets with them quite often, and they're really excited about their role, and we've really seen an impact from having these individuals who work with students that are in need of tier 2 support, meaning the students just are starting to show some struggles. So they help the students in accessing additional resources, whether it's tutoring and those types of things. We also have Chico, or check-in, check-out programs at 4 of our schools, and then a Latino mentor programs. All of these are in that purpose of creating more opportunities for students to find staff members that they have authentic relationships with. So student leadership opportunities at the April student listening session, you heard from many students that were actually trained through YCLL, and those students will continue, we're engaging them through next year and beyond in something that we're calling the Student Equity Council. So our intention is that those groups continue their diverse representations across the campuses, and they've been trained over 4 days by our partners at Restorative Equity Partnerships. They've included Middle College and Peninsula, and this actually, their work has prompted the reinstitution of a leadership class at Peninsula. So the group of students there saw the importance of that. And then we are also hoping that through these efforts that we'll see an increase in the diversity of our leadership classes. Go to the next slide. We hired the district social worker for English learners, and she's been extremely effective in supporting students from across the schools, particularly with the influx of us welcoming many new English learners. She's been providing them like invaluable services in terms of getting them connected to community resources as they enter our school system. Our family engagement coordinators continue to provide critical support to families and students. And they've also created, as I mentioned, a in-house family engagement series. There were 2 series with 7 sessions each. We also have a goal, we didn't meet it this year, that was initiated, or it was a brainchild of our equity advisory committee, where there were some parents there that are hoping to create a families helping families program, where some of our families that have navigated the US school system support and mentor other families also new to the country to navigate the school system. So that's something that's under development. And then we also are going to continue our efforts around increasing the diversity of our PTOs, just so that the work that they're doing also is representative of their total student body. And I can go to the next slide. The next goal is around safe and connected communities. And this is about how we ensure that our campuses are safe. And the metrics associated with this one are absences, suspensions, students' feeling of connectedness on campus. And so our actions around that include, you can go to the next slide. creating a family engagement series that is cohesive and coherent throughout the year. Again, we've piloted an education series, and we also developed a partnership through the county with Parent Venture and the Peninsula Healthcare. We've revised our family handbook, and we're also looking to create a district advisory for parents of students with IEPs, implement communication outreach for hugged families, and then train as student leaders in equity series. And this is coordinated with the anti-racist PD that all of our staff is engaged in, and then implement restorative practices all sites. So these are all the things that we're intending to do under this goal. Go to the next slide. So we did have a year-long plan implemented this year for family engagement, where families could see through the year on different events that they could attend. We did 2 family nights, fall and spring, to full access for families. And there's full access to families with the Parent Ventures video library. As I mentioned in the last goal, the Youth Catalyst Leadership, Liberatory Leadership Training had students trained on components of equity, as well as implementing some ideas on how to disrupt hate speech on campus. So that's articulated with our grand jury report around hate at schools. And then we continue to support schools in developing restorative approaches to discipline, and they're in effect to a certain extent across all of our campuses, and we continue to support that through trainings and our MTSS work. Go to the next slide. And I think now I'm passing over to Mr. Simmons to talk about goals 3 and 4.
Good evening, board. Superintendent Skelly, cabinet, new superintendent Booker. Good evening. So yeah, this is the third of the 4 priority areas. And as indicated previously in other presentations this year, this third priority is focused on the core of our academic program. It's ensuring that students have relevant, engaging learning every day in every class. And when our first attempts at supporting students in those mainstream classrooms is not effective, that we have a strong and coordinated set of supports for intervention. I'm going to move us to the next slide and review the goals and the metrics associated with, sorry, the goals, the actions associated with this. And so in order to achieve that kind of aspirational goal, we set out to continue to build a coordinated system of support that we call a multi-tiered system of support, as you've heard about a number of times before, that really is built on, differentiated instruction the first time students learn concepts and skills. But in addition, we really are starting a new initiative where our subject area coordinators will lead. Sorry, I just got distracted by my own vision here. We've also said we were going to develop and implement some common performance tasks across the district. Thirdly, we were going to evolve our college and career readiness initiatives across the district and really investing in our dual enrollment pathways. And lastly, we were going to continue to implement AVID and other college readiness support initiatives across all school sites. Next slide, please. And so what you see here is sort of an accounting of what we've accomplished. We did this year establish a period release for these multi-tiered system of support coordinators. Those are certificated positions at every school site that had release time to start to build out our tier 1 common agreements that would provide universal to support students across all courses. We also spent some time this spring really refining our curriculum coordinator positions into an instructional lead position. The idea is that we're going to invest in supporting the development of a common instructional framework, which really defines that tier 1 set of common agreements across every school in the district. And it is really sort of built on culturally responsive lessons and assessment approaches. In addition, we continued to use for diagnostic and monitoring purposes, what it was traditionally called the algebra readiness test, the MDTP assessment, the math inventory, that's the scholastic math inventory and the scholastic reading inventory in our intervention courses. And we continue to pay attention to assessing student academic need across the district, and we'll kind of redouble our efforts in that regard next year. We've continued to expand dual enrollment. I just happened to be in the dual enrollment steering committee 2 days ago and heard about some of the amazing quantity of students. And you'll see this actually in the reporting of metrics at the end of at our next board meeting. of the sort of flowering of dual enrollment opportunities for students. Hundreds and hundreds of students in the district taking college courses, many of them on our campuses, some of them virtually, some of them at the community college campuses, in addition to our students who are taking them traditionally at middle college. And taking classes at at all three campuses, CSM, Kenyatta, and Skyline. We continue to implement AVID robustly across the district at 4 school sites. And we have a really large contingent of folks heading to the Summer Institute. You all approved their attendance this last board meeting. Since it's going to be in San Francisco, there's a large contingent, and then actually from a couple of our schools who don't currently have AVID to sort of see if this is a program they want to start to initiate. And then, as was referred to earlier, we've provided Tier 2 training. Well, the Tier 2 program has grown, I think, significantly this year and seen some real improvements. We provided training to our southern schools, in similar to what we had provided previously in the northern end of the district to Mills, Cappuccino, and Burlingame. And those schools have really refined their Tier 2 process. So this is the process of triaging students when they're seeing some kind of, they've got a number of absences, they're not doing well in their classes. There's a group of school counselors and others who convene to essentially triage students and figure out what's the best intervention for this student, and then make sure that they actually attend those things, those interventions. And then we have these new student success coordinators who really kind of shepherd the students to make sure they're actually participating in those supports. And then lastly, there should have been a bullet point there in the last one. It's we have a new hybrid summer school program. We're taking kind of a new run at summer school, using some of the learning of our last couple of years by having our classes online, both in person and virtual, sort of 50-50, but they're all teacher-led classes. So we won't actually be using our online learning platform, Edgenuity. We'll be having our teachers lead our classes this summer and are excited about that. Next slide, please. So the final priority area is related sort of the continuous improvement of our staff. I'm going to now move ahead. Next slide, please. So in the 2021 to 2024 LCAP, we had outlined a number of different initiatives. One was to contract with an external provider. You now know them as Shane Saphir and Joe Truss, to train all staff on implementing anti-racist, culturally responsive practice across the district. You heard a little bit about that just a little bit ago from Trustee Griffin about kind of the experience that's been going on there, and even the experience that our students are beginning to see in their classrooms and in their interactions with their teachers. We were going to continue the teacher training and inquiry into equitable grading practices. We did some of that work. I'll say a little bit more about that in just a minute. And then we were going to work this year to enact a collaborative monitoring and support regime among site administrators around the Tier 1 work. We have some work to do on that one. I'll say a little bit more about that one in the next slide. We will continue to implement the coaching program and ensure that it aligns with our anti-racist teaching practices. So we implemented the program. I think we have some work to do around now the alignment of that effort around our new initiative. We started, as you know, in earnest with the hiring of an administrative position at the district level for the new induction program. And so that will really get going in earnest in the fall this next year. And then lastly, we have, and we've reported a little bit about this in the past, but we really wanted to support in particular kind of affinity-based faculty of color across the district. And so have offered throughout this year a couple of options for our faculty of color to participate in sort of race-based or affinity-based professional learning as a support to them. Next slide, please. And so in terms of our work, I think, we will be reporting a little bit in more detail about our anti-racist teaching and learning initiative this year at our next board meeting when we bring the sort of summary of what we've learned this year. But we feel excited about kind of the common language and the common work that we've established as an organization. On Monday we had an amazing symposium and saw a lot of meaning. So in the afternoon on Monday, we had an early release day for all of our campuses, and our teachers sort of shared what they've learned and how they've evolved this year through that work. And so we'll share again more of those details when we see you at the next board meeting. We plan to continue the partnership with Truss and Saphir in the next year and really evolve the focus of that support to site leadership teams and our new instructional leads, as I described them earlier. We're also going to differentiate that engagement to better serve the needs of non-teaching staff members, specifically classified members, because we noted, throughout the year that there's a limit to how much kind of everybody together learning the same common language has power, but then there's a need to really dig into, well, what are the implications for people's specific roles? And then last few things, we're going to continue to support teams of innovative teachers as they engage in this work kind of at different paces and in different specific ways, specifically as relates to grading practices, but also with regard to specific instructional practices. Pardon me. We also anticipate continuing, obviously, the instructional coaching program and the new induction program. And we will continue to offer opportunities in the new year for our BIPOC teachers to be supported through both affinity-based, but other support structures that they tell us about and that we identify. Next slide, please. The last piece of the LCAP and the last piece of this presentation is related to what the LCAP sort of defines as increased or improved services for what they call unduplicated pupils, we call historically underserved groups of students. And so that the way that's about $4.5 million that the district allocates of its general fund to support kind of increased or improved services, we invest the bulk of those resources in these various strategies. I think the biggest bulk of that is really around our intervention courses. We assign 20.4 FTE across the school sites using kind of a calculation that sort of is derived from the population of each school site. So depending upon the percentage of the overall group of historically underserved groups of students across the district, each site has a percentage of that, and we allocate those sections based on that calculation. We will continue to invest to provide students with hotspots. Now that we are a one-to-one district, we will continue to use those resources to provide students with internet access who need it at home. We'll also continue to use it for AVID and our EL specialists and our family engagement coordinators. And lastly, continuing to support some of the homework support that our student success coordinators oversee. And with that, next slide, please. Comes the end of our presentation, and we're happy to answer questions and solicit feedback.
Trustee Dwyer.
Oh, okay. I don't know if I'm first. I was first, but I am first.
Zoom says you're first.
Perfect. Julie and Brian, great presentation. What I really like is when someone gives us a PowerPoint and then they give us like 1,000 more pieces of information that are on the PowerPoint just by talking. Because what it shows is that you know this subject matter so well, that you're living and breathing it. And that has such an impact on the schools. And I want to thank you for that, because the amount of caring that you put into your work, I'm not sure that's always appreciated, but you do put a lot of caring in, and both of you. And I look at you and I think, wow, what a lot of work this is. So I want to tell you how much I appreciate that. I really look forward to hearing about the symposium. And I wish there was a way that we could expand the training, you know how I think, to include just a few students, student leaders, some kids, because I think the message is so important, and they are the future, and they're the present, but they're very much the future. And so involving them, I don't know how that could be done, but I really like some thought given to that. Because I see that when we're looking at student leaders, and particularly developing student leaders, that's an incredible opportunity for them to see what's going on and to become leaders. So anyway, thank you very much.
Trustee Land, I think you're next.
Yep. You got the right order. Way to go, President Hanley. All right. First of all, I do want to thank both of you, Brian and Julia, for a great job. I'm just gonna give you some style points and kudos for just the overall priorities, the authentic relationships, just the words that you've chosen, and the relevant learning, really meaningful ways in which to implement this LCAP. So I really, just the way you've set it up and prioritized it is visionary. And I just want to really give you compliments to that. When you get down to the nitty gritty and you're talking about the implementations, I'd like to see some of this in action. I'd love to see how the student success coordinators work, how your MTSS is going on, because these are amazing programs to hear off from as an educator. And so seeing this in action is something I almost want to, like in the fall, say, hey, can I visit and just see at the sites? Because it's really what's needed. And, you know, building those authentic relationships and having student success coordinators to really connect the students with what they need. All your leadership work, I think Linda really put up a lot about the symposium and our leadership opportunities and the equity work that we're doing. It's just, I'm really impressed with our curriculum and instruction department and what you guys are doing. So kudos. I'll keep it short.
See Griffin.
I just got a quick question. And I do appreciate the presentation, and this has to do with the social worker. And I think when this came up before, I said, well, it's a really important component because people are needing guidance and support. And a lot of this is not just academic, support through navigating 4 years of high school. How do we measure, and Dr. Kimke, you were the comments were very encouraging. And somebody, and usually it's Peter, and it used to be Steve Rogers, show me the data is what they would always end up with. And you don't have to show me the data, but what are we measuring on that in terms of inputs or points of contact? What are we doing in that area?
Well, generally, I'm not necessarily know specifically, but generally a social worker has a caseload of students that they'll work with that are identified as needing kind of this wraparound services. So if you think about like a therapist works one-on-one with a student, a social worker works with the student and the community. So providing the students access to community resources. I don't know our social workers like caseload off the top of my head, but she's Spanish speaking and works directly just with our English learners. So providing those students directly with access of whether or not it is food services, jobs, support for their family, all of those things will be part of it. Just navigating the school system for that family in particular. But I'm sure we could get you some data around the number of students she's currently working with. And we could either, I think at the next board meeting, you're going to have a mental health update, which probably will include some of this. We do have now another social worker that's not included in this because it's covered under the CSI grant, which is for Peninsula specifically. We have an additional social worker that was just recently hired, but they generally carry a caseload like a therapist would, and we probably could tell you about how many they're supporting in different ways, and you'd have different levels of support that they might give. So some students may be on the caseload for a while, kind of at a tier 3 level where they're meeting with these families and students quite often, and then others that might have one meeting with a social worker and it resolves what they need. But I'm sure we could give you data. All of like those types of positions will track kind of all of the work that they're doing pretty carefully. It's part of the requirements of that job too.
I could just quickly add that I think that as part of that mental health presentation, you'll also be hearing about, I think, a large grant that we, in collaboration with our elementary partners, our student services team, has gone after a $2 million grant to work with actually our elementary partners on staffing social workers system-wide, since so many families are sort of connected across our systems. And so I think it's a really innovative approach they're going to take to that. So we're going to have to show, certainly for the grant and certainly for our own purposes, sort of show us the outcome. So I imagine that will be coming as part of that.
Yeah, the things and the things that would be interest is like points of contact or unduplicated points of contact to kind of give us how deep the need is. And then the other thing, and I'm not really interested so much in drilling down and kind of talking about specific cases or things. It occurs to me that when we have enough of a certain type of issue, it's really a systemic issue that can be solved not through the social workers so much as it is through improving the system, that we just change this maybe at intake or however we contact the family, and that way it keeps it makes the caseload for the social worker more manageable. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
No, I know. I understand what you're saying. If there are things in the system that the social worker continues to have to like support people in navigating, it's better to change the system than
Yeah.
having them take the time to do that thing.
Yeah.
So certainly, I think it's a really good point, and I'm sure that we could take some time with our social worker and see if there are any things that are coming up like that. So sure, she has a plenty of insight, and I'm sure our social worker at Peninsula will also give us some really great insight on how we can support families there on navigating the system if there are systemic issues coming up.
Thank you.
So what I like about this is I think we're making some progress in terms of connecting into families and communities in a better way than we have in the past. And so the first part of the presentation seems to indicate, a lot of the things that DLAC has talked about the last couple of years of where we needed to go, and some of the things that I talked about, particularly, where I think you make progress with, that I've seen how you make progress, particularly in Latino communities. We seem to be developing those kinds of connections in a stronger way than we had in the past. Where I'm not seeing it translate for me is, where does it go in terms of academic outcomes? And that's what I'm not getting out of this is where are we using those connections to reach the bottom line and improve the bottom line of the academic outcomes, either for career readiness or college readiness. What are, I'm not seeing I'm not seeing how are we tracking that? How are we measuring that? How are, we seem to be reaching into the communities, which is a good thing, but I'm not coming out with what is that leading to, and how are we measuring that, and how are we showing that it's leading to stronger outcomes for the students at the end of the day. And I'm not seeing that in the presentation. As how do we know that this is actually leading to, our students coming out better prepared for whether they want to go into a particular career track, or they want to go on to a four-year college, or, how are we measuring that? How do we know that we're succeeding? All of this work, all of this connecting, all of this social work, has to, at the end of the day, make stronger students. And that's what I'm missing in this, is I can't put my hands on, do we have stronger students at the end?
Maybe I'll ask Mr. Simmons to talk a little bit about our board presentation that we anticipate on June 9th. I will say that you mentioned stronger, more connected students. We're doing lots of work, and I think you saw that. And your question is, how do we measure that? Well, you obviously have a confounding factor here, which is the pandemic, which has torn us apart quite a bit in terms of the social fabric of schooling. But Mr. Simmons, maybe you can just.
Actually,
we're talking about a plan that's for 21-24.
Yeah.
So we got to have a plan that makes that happen in 21 to 24.
I
And-
just want to, one of the things that we want to mention is that each one of the goal areas have metrics associated with them. So what we presented tonight were the actions that we hope will get us better results in those metrics. And those metrics are what Mr. Simmons has presented earlier this year. So they're certainly ones that we are tracking and we're required to track in the LCAP, and they'll come back to you in the actual document. But those are the metrics that you're used to seeing around AP, IB enrollment, 10th graders on track. We don't have CAS scores as of yet that we can share, but all of those things are under that goal 3. So those are the metrics these are all of the actions that we're using to get us better metrics in those areas. So tonight we were just talking about the actions in those service areas, but I just want to make sure that part was clear. So it's not just actions saying, oh, well, I hope we get to this goal. There are metrics associated with each one of those goals. The ones you're talking about with academics, dual enrollment, IB, AP, 10th graders on track, the A to G college entrance percentages are all under the inclusive relevant learning, and we're tracking those. And Mr. Simmons presented those results in February, I think.
And we've actually presented so you'll see back on the timeline up in slide 2 or 3,
Yeah.
there's a series of board reports, right? So there's 18 metrics that have associated subgroups. And I mean, you've seen the data, right? It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
So we subdivide this out kind of intentionally over the course of the year. Basically, when it's hot off the presses, we share it with you. We try to associate it with the actual goals and metrics. It's hard to keep track of. I mean, only those of us inside baseball are paying attention to all of that kind of as it goes. But when you see the actual LCAP, as Dr. Kemke said, next board meeting on the 9th, you'll see the draft. You'll see the associated, right? So every goal and every action has an associated outcome. Now, some of those outcomes are loosely connected to those inputs, because sometimes, because obviously, like, for example, college readiness is a gigantic trailing indicator that a lot of things contribute to, not one thing, but we try to associate them with things that are the most closely associated with we think is going to have an impact on those things.
But when you're talking, I guess when you're having these overall community and family discussions, what's being conveyed in that in terms of those metrics? In other words, when you're talking to a family, what are you saying to them as to what are you laying out possible goals? In other words, they've got to be able to see something that they can aim for. In other words, how do you lay that out to a family as you're having these communications with them?
So I think I understand your question. We're talking about the kind of micro interaction between a student and the institution and our counselors or our family engagement folks, and kind of mapping out a plan for their students. Is that the question you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's really the work of, and honestly, some work we've built into the A to G grant. So there's also some things that we're doing that aren't even accounted for in this document, because the state's given us sort of buckets of money that we've aligned, but are sort of in other pouches, right? In other places. And so we're investing in our school counseling teams. As I think I said when we talked about the A to G grant, we're going to actually have we have about 70% of our counselors are within the first 5 years in the district. So we've had a huge turnover in our school counseling crew. And so there's a need to norm and reset sort of some expectations. And one of those things is the 4-year planning process. You'll even see in the LCAP, there's an action around development of a 4-year plan. So in some ways, what happens now is that individual students meet with, individual counselors annually at a minimum. They have a plan for them. Often it's a pretty default plan, right? It's like the sort of to get students to graduation requirements, and if they're on track, to continue them on the UC CSU eligibility track. And that's the plan for the family and the student. What we're hearing from families, and you heard it in the DLAC presentation, is that folks want maybe less a CSU UC heavy orientation and more what are our options, right? What can I do at the community college? What are the trades options I might have? Like that's what we're hearing from families is less direct connection to a four-year institution, which in many ways we kind of defaulted to over the last probably 15 to 20 years. And I think what's great about now is that we're really in a place where we're really thinking about the co-equal opportunities that students have in a variety of different post-secondary options, not just four-year university, because that isn't necessarily the best first step for a lot of students and families. And we already know that over half of our students go to community college out of high school to begin with. So I don't know, does that answer, I don't know if I've answered your question.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Greg.
Sorry. So I get Bob and Peter, I really respect the idea of the connection with the metrics. And I really appreciate how you asked a lot of questions about how to dive into that. But I'm going to, as an educator, emphasize and really promote the success and the direction that both of these individuals and our jurisdiction is going in. When you talk about authentic relationships, you talk about, building with social work, the needs of students through, the hierarchy of needs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And it's like, I'm going to say it, and I don't mean it to be trite because I really believe in it. You got a Maslow before you bloom. And so, I did that for all the educators in the room. And, and I really believe in that. I really feel like you have really made a base for understanding that we have to go beyond just the learning and understand the capabilities of our students to be ready to learn. And I know that's going to be hard with the metrics. And I think both Peter and Bob put a really good point about how we're going to measure this. But to be able to say that you have a real foundation and that we're doing this in the district in the way that you're setting it up, again, I want to give kudos to that. And I didn't want to really slide against that. I really wanted to emphasize that because I know we have metrics and we're going to look at them and it's very important to do so. But this direction, this visionary direction of where we're going into, I really want to say thank you to both of you and our whole department and all the people that are doing this, because this is the right work. And this is the stuff that I think is sometimes forgotten, that we have to worry about the social and emotional. We have to worry about where our vulnerable students are so that they could be successful. And so I just want to say thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We can, are we ready to move on to the next one?
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you to Brian and Julia for summarizing this. Obviously, they deserve a lot of credit here, but there are a whole bunch of people who do the work as well on various aspects of this work. And it's I think we've gone to a process where this work is really the annual goals. And so I think you see that we've really accomplished a lot this year that we can feel proud of collectively.
Yeah, there's obviously been a lot of progress made on this. You can see the development from years past. There's been a lot of movement forward. So thank you for that presentation and for the work that went into it. So L4 is schematic design drawings, budget, and schedule for San Mateo High School gymnasium replacement project.
So I like all facilities, but I really like gyms. So this is an exciting project for us here. And I know Yvonne is excited as well, delighted to see her presenting part of this presentation. And I'm going to turn this over to our Chief Business Officer, Yancey Hawkins.
Thank you, Dr. Skelly. Tonight, we've got Jose Quintana from our facilities department and Yvonne Shu, obviously from San Mateo High School. Jeff Scheller wanted to be here, but he's at the award ceremony for his athletes, so he's in the right place. We also have Todd Lee from Greystone West, who's a frequent flyer around here, as well as Mark Kotroki and John Dibzak from QKA. Mark, thank you for being a road warrior and from your hotel. We appreciate you being
No
here.
worries.
The process for the second San Mateo gym has been a wonderful process with the staff. I want to thank Ms. Xu and her staff for just being wonderful partners in this collaborative process. And with that, I will turn it over to Mark and then Todd when we get to some of the date or some of the other information.
Great. Thank you, Yancey. We can go ahead and start the PowerPoint show whenever you're ready. It's really nice to be back with the board. Thank you for having us. We're particularly excited. I have to say I love all school buildings, but there is something about gymnasiums and performing arts buildings that are really interesting design opportunities for us. I think Yancey did a fine job describing those who were involved. I just want to give a particular shout out to Yvonne and to Jeff Scheller. We got a lot of really good input from staff, and they were troopers through the whole process. There were several design meetings we had with many involved from faculty from the school, as well as from the district office. We toured the existing facility as well as had some one-on-one. So what we're presenting today really does reflect the considered opinion of a lot of people for this auxiliary gym. Next, please. So I'm sure the board's aware, the auxiliary gym in the Fort San Mateo High School it's always been woefully undersized and inadequate. It doesn't have the support facilities that a high school of this size really needs. There's a classroom need, and the facility does not lend itself in any way, shape, or form to be renovated to be right. So the scope of this project was really right. The goal of making a new facility. One of the first tasks we did with the design committee is looked at locations for it, and like all of your high schools, there's limited opportunities for it, but it frankly was the most ideal of locations to place it where the tennis courts are. And fear not, I'll show you in a moment where we're placing those. But in that location, it has that wonderful opportunity to be available easily for students, both coming from the school as well as from the main gym, but also serving the community so well when they park and come to after-hour events. So with that side in mind, let's go to the next slide. And I'll dive in much more detail on the building, but just at a very kind of overall level, wanted you to see the new facility fits very nicely in what was the tennis courts, doesn't affect a lot of other facilities. And then you can see the location for the new tennis courts just above the district facilities barn, as well as south of the ball field. So it works really well there, and it'll be also supported by the new gymnasium. So let's look kind of a little closer, and we'll go into the site plan. So next slide, please. So I'll talk about the building in a minute, but I thought I'd describe a little bit about the site design. Gymnasiums are interesting challenges because, like theaters, they're large boxes, but this site also has a lot of paving around it. So we're using landscape as much as a way to sort of soften and provide senses of entry, also provide some shade and shadow around the school. So having said that, this is oriented the same way as the slide I showed you. The student parking is on the left there. So when I look at the site, when I move from that student parking to the new building, you can see that area with the number 1 and 6 there. That's the main entry plaza. When I get into the building, you'll see that's where the main lobby is. This is the most important side of the building. So you can see it's a good size courtyard there. It's a place for students to sort of be and hang out before class. It's also a great opportunity for kind of pick up and drop off after practice or after games. As I move south or down the bottom of the page there, you can see those 6 trees. That's really the direction a lot of students will come from. So again, it's a place for a little bit of shade and shadow. Then as I move to the south of the gym, you can see that large green area there. It's really interesting working with Jeff and the other coaches. What they really need is as many places as we can shoehorn in for places for scrimmages, for practice, for running drills. So we thought this would be a great place for a sand volleyball court or something, but what they really wanted was a synthetic turf area to do those things. So that's what that will be. It'll be a really good looking feature as a synthetic turf. And then below it, that area 16, it's not currently in the project or the budget, but it's sort of master plan that eventually those basketball courts could also become another part of a synthetic field area. The rest of the landscape area kind of on the east and on the north, so on the right and on the top of the building, is about bioswales and again, shade and shadow. There is a couple of entrances into the building on the east side and on the north side as well. Next, please. This image just shows you just some vignettes of some of the imagery, starting off on the bottom with the variety of trees. There's some really great mature trees on site. We'll clearly work closely with district staff on all the plant material and the trees that are picked, but we're looking for some opportunities for some volume, some things to help mitigate the mass of that building, but as I say, provide some shade and places of respite. Planting will be either used for bioswales or drought tolerant. And then the images above are just some of the things we'll do. We've done in all your schools. So seat walls, benches, bike racks, some interesting paving patterns as we could afford them in front of the lobby. And this image board kind of paints the picture of the things we imagine as we finish this work through design. Next, please. So I think the more interesting part, although the landscape architect thought the previous one was the most important, is getting into the building itself. This is oriented the same way as the site plan. So the parking lot is to the far left and the fields are above and to the right. So on the left, you can see that lobby there. It's that light brown box and it's labeled lobby. I'm just as a way of organizing the building. The lobby's on that side and I'll talk a little bit more about that. And you can see that horizontal corridor. It's really the organizing element for the building. Below it is the main gym. Above it are all the many things that need to have access to the gym. So this corridor provides a great way to move through the building, but also that exit on the right, which is the east side, is a great way to get to the tennis court and also get to the fields as well. So that's a very important organizing element for the building. So back to the lobby. Students could be hanging out outside, they move through the lobby, or there's an after-hour events. You know, lobbies in a gym like this, because they're really not selling concessions, it's not the main gym, it's really a place to sort of stamp your feet, dry off a little bit, shake your umbrella. The goal is that before they step on the gym floor, it provides a good threshold. There's bathrooms there for the public. It could also be used by students. And I think I'll start above the corridor from the top left. The training room is there, the blue space on the top left. I can get to it from the gym, but also you see the double doors. It's a very important facility, both the ice and the tables and the opportunity to wrap ankles and so forth from the field. So I have access on both sides. Then moving a little bit more to the right off that main corridor, there's a gender neutral toilet room, but also a very important space that we're designing more and more, not just now in just gender neutral toilet rooms, but in gyms, providing gender neutral changing facilities. So the opportunity for students that prefer not to have a gendered team room to change, they're given that opportunity. The two purple boxes represent those very important team rooms. I can get to them from the gym, or as you can see, there's doors on the outside. These are perfectly sized for whether it's a lacrosse team or football or soccer. There's plenty of room to change, but also that very important opportunity to scrimmage and huddle, whether it's a halftime or an opportunity for a coach to talk through some strategies. So that team room is really well suited for that. And these are good sized lockers as you'll need for a team room. And then lastly, the sort of middle facilities there, they're the coaches' offices and the support spaces that are needed. And then the far right, again, kind of just the top half of that building. You can never have enough storage, just like your closets at home. So this is that really important storage space for the seasonal football, soccer, lacrosse, and so forth, equipment that needs to be stored. So the main gym, of course, is what this is all about. So from that lobby, you can see we have direct access into it. There's 4 ways to get in and out of that gym. It's designed around about 1,000 seat stadium or bleachers. We're showing them with the bleachers completely extended. And so we have room for a full-size 94-foot basketball court, 94 by 50 basketball court, also has room for competition volleyball or for competition badminton. So that number of people could watch any of those events. But we also know that the majority of the day, the majority of the time, those bleachers don't need to be extended. So they'll be pulled back and you can very vaguely see some cross courts. There'll be cross court basketball there. So a PE class can run 2 full-size basketball games. There'll be a dividing curtain perhaps between those, but the opportunity to provide PE classes in there where the bleachers are pulled back. Then the last thing to talk about the facilities, and I failed to mention, there's also a storage room off of the gym, which is vitally important for all those things like volleyball nets. Then the lower left, something we see more and more in PE programs, is a classroom. This is while Yvonne may find a need for it, but it also provides coaches the opportunity to use this, whether again, it's a team huddle or for a class. It's accessible from the outside for students, but it's also accessible directly from the gym floor itself. So those are the facilities, many of which were either weren't available or were woefully inadequate in the previous facility, now really sort of a state of the art for a high school. Next, please. So for the fun part, this is the most important and principal entry into the gymnasium. This is off of the student parking. It's even the way students would approach this building. You know, designing gyms are not unlike what we experienced doing your performing arts center at the San Mateo High School. They're large boxes with limited windows. So you can see we use the lower volumes of the team rooms and so forth to sort of step the building down. Then we also find ways to clad it in a way that's really appropriate to that school. You have a very strong image of brick there. And we found ourselves faced with that also on the Performing Arts Center. And hopefully you agree successfully using, in that case, a slate. Here we're using a terracotta tile with some variation in color. If you look at that brick, it also has these variations. So it's a great sort of appropriate homage to the school, but also it's a new building. It's a gym, it's not a classroom building. So it also has this sort of sense of being a modern 21st century gymnasium facility, but fits very comfortably in a school with this, you know, sort of great historic precedent to it. The gym has this large glass wall with the pitched roof on it. That higher roof runs all the way across that cross corridor I told you about. And you can see the windows and the doors into the training room. You can see we're looking for opportunities, as I do in all of our work, for daylight. Now I'm going to walk to the left, and so we can sort of see it from the east, if I can get to the next slide. So I've walked past the building. I've turned around. Behind me is the baseball fields. This is probably the more less visible side, except for maybe coming from the fields, but still an important side of the building. Those light panels on the right-hand side, that's how I got into the team rooms directly from the fields. But on the left, you can see that cross corridor. We wanted it to have still a sense of importance, but not to be confused with the main lobby. So it's just a slightly elevated height, which is really nice because we'll use that as a way to bring daylight throughout the whole length of it. And then you can see that terracotta tile also there, calling out that entry there, because it is an important entry the students will be using. And then lastly, the gym itself, we're using that same light color that you'll see as the highlight color in the main building. So we're using a similar color there of plaster, but kind of an interesting pattern of the control joints. And then notice on that north side, we're providing some translucent glass. A lot of our gyms will still do that. Our goal is that there'll be enough daylight that maybe just a PE class, it won't be enough for competition, but maybe for a PE class, we just won't have to rely so much on the artificial lights. So we'll be doing some other natural lights there. So that's the good overview of the schematic design. If we can go to the next slide, I'm going to turn this over to Todd to walk us through the schedule and the budget.
So now that the fun part's over, we'll get to the necessities. So we started design in April. We've got about an 8-month design process. We're getting into DSA in December. DSA will take about 4 months to review and approve the drawings. In the meantime, we'll start our leaseback process and get our contractor on board so we can do constructability reviews and cost estimates while DSA is working on the design review and approval process. We'll start construction as soon as school's out for the summer in 2023. We've got about 16 months of hard construction running through November of 2024. We've got a month for punch list and occupancy. So moving in around Thanksgiving of 2024. And then we've got 3 months for closeout and completion of the project for a final completion in right after winter break in 2025. The nice part about this is that we're not down really in a building. We're down some tennis courts, which we'll have further discussion about in a minute. But the plan is to get the new tennis courts under construction and hope to have them complete by May of 2023 when we take the current ones out of service. So moving on to the budget. Next slide, please. So budget news is not quite so good. We are about 13% over the board approved budget of $20 million. It's not in Scope Creep. It almost entirely due to escalation. I escalated when I did these budgets in 2018 prior to the Measure L bond. We were 7% in that year and then 5% on the out years. And I think everybody's aware escalation has outpaced that considerably, and we've got some fudge factor built in for the next 9 months until we get this thing out on the street to bid. It's a project that has over 20 trades in it, so it's more susceptible to escalation than other projects might be. That also does not include replacement of the tennis courts. So when we did our assumptions early on, we were going to put this on the side of the existing small gym and basketball courts. And the decision was made to keep the small gym that's existing, which I think makes good sense. It gives you room to convert that to a fitness center and further facilities on site. It's in good shape. It's just not adequate for the purpose that it's been serving. So we'll be coming to you in June with a separate project for not only the tennis courts reconstruction or construction of new tennis courts, including 2 lighted courts to match the standard that we've done at Cappuccino and Mills, but also new bullpens and a batting cage for the baseball field, which has to be relocated to make room for the tennis courts. So that will be on top of this. And I'm working with Mr. Hawkins right now on how to pay for that. With that, I think I'll hand it over to Yvonne to talk about process.
Hi, good evening, President Hanley, members of the board, Superintendent Skelly, and members of the cabinet. Having had a long tenure at San Mateo High School, I've been involved in a number of construction projects on the campus. And this was the first time that I was involved at the very beginning in the process of choosing an architect that would best reflect the needs of San Mateo. And so it has been a pleasure working again with Mark and the team at QKA, as they have done a number of projects at San Mateo. And it was very important to keep the elements of the campus to integrate it with a new building. We had a couple of good laughs along the way while we were designing. And so that made the process go very well in terms of just being able to get along and speak very freely and honestly about our ideas. It was a great collaborative experience, not only including my involvement, but that of our athletic director, Jeff Scheller, our PE department chair, Matt Labby, our athletic trainer, Jessica Mays, as well as our facility manager, Donna Huna. And so a lot of voices were in the room. We all felt that we were listened to and heard in our biweekly meetings, going back and forth with some adjustments, things that were being made, and taking into account all of the ideas and the input that we were getting. We certainly look forward to the next steps in making this project happen. And I just want to address, like earlier in the meeting, Mr. Griffin brought up the gender neutral restrooms, and there will be gender neutral restrooms and changing rooms in this area. And I plan on meeting with a group of students to get their input so that we can best accommodate their needs in terms of what they see as kind of space wise, just because our last meeting, we talked a lot about, what is necessary? Are there any guidelines? And so there aren't very many guidelines, actually. And so given the space that we have, I will be gathering some input and bringing it back before any of the finalized plans come to fruition, so that we have a facility that meets the needs of all of our students, and in taking into account our gender nonconforming students. So I appreciate being able to participate at the level that we have, and I look forward to continuing our work together. So thank you very much for it.
With that, the team is available and ready for questions.
Trustee Dwyer, I think you're first.
Greg was actually ahead of me.
Well, Zoom says you're first.
Okay, sorry, Greg. I have three things. One, will we be putting solar panels on top of that big, large, flat roof? Could you talk about, that's number one.
Yes, ma'am. They're part of the district-wide solar project. So the roof by code has to be solar ready. And then as we're completing construction, we have the district-wide solar project that will do the actual panel implementation.
Perfect. Okay. My other two questions are kind of tied together. It almost looked like on the map that the road kind of wound around those tennis courts and then continued around to the back to the adult school. I would like to know, I didn't see that with the new building, I didn't see that was happening. And then I would like to hear a little bit about the tennis courts.
For the road, I want to make sure I understand the question. We've not altered the drive on both the east and the north side. So those weren't affected by the building. We stayed within the footprint of the tennis court. Did I answer that?
So then that little road continues around.
Yes.
Okay,
we
yeah, it
didn't
wasn't
affect that
clear
at
from
all.
the picture because
Oh,
it seemed
sorry.
like
Yeah.
it looked like the baseball field went right into the tennis court.
Right. Oh, I see. So you're referring to between because I don't think there's a road there now. Maybe we could go back to the site plan.
It kind of curves around.
No, the road's still there. It's
Yeah,
just,
we haven't changed the road.
Okay, that I just wanted to make.
Yeah. The
I think
road's
that
not
having
affected.
that through access is really important. So I was
Agreed.
wanted to
We
make
definitely
sure.
maintain that. We did not affect that.
Okay, and then you will tell us a little more about the tennis courts.
Yeah, Trustee Lees Dwyer, we'll have a full presentation on the
Oh.
schematic design
Okay.
for the tennis courts and the minor upgrades on the baseball fields. I believe at the June 23rd meeting, Todd.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I think the plans look beautiful, and I think it's really exciting for San Mateo and for the district. So I think I really like what you included in the project and the involvement of the staff in helping with, so that the needs of the school are being met within this beautiful new structure. So, and I love basketball. So there you go.
Trustee Land.
okay. So I really, again, Yvonne, thanks for bringing up the general neutral
Yeah.
component and really emphasizing that. I think that's important, and that's going to be a growing issue over time anyway. So I'm glad to see that. Excellent job. I love the location. I love the drawing. I love the greenery that's going to go around. I think that's awesome. So my only criticism is design element. So I think you did a good job of trying to connect the two of the modern with the traditional aspects and the colors of the matching what's going on with the rest of the school. I just feel like when you start getting to the north side and the northeast side, that it starts diminishing and becoming a little bit more industrial. And so my criticism there is it doesn't flow all the way through. It feels like you have a great facade in the front and then a warehouse in the back. So I hate to be critical, but that's my only criticism of the whole thing, and everything else I think is fantastic. So thank you.
Actually, I want to acknowledge that, and good for you for saying it. I almost acknowledge that ourselves. We decided we're gonna get this to this point that it is. As always in schematic, in fact, as an architect, design never ends, and we continue refining into construction drawings. So I feel we're in the next phase of design. We have a lot of work. Well, not a lot of work. I think we have some important work to do on the north side. I share your feelings about it. Todd and I talked about this. We feel very comfortable with the budget and where we are, but we'll continue to work with Yvonne and the staff because that side's important too. So I thank you for the honesty. I really appreciate that because I feel the same way.
Okay, I was good. I felt like I don't know if I wanted to say that, but okay, I'm glad.
No, always, I always appreciate the honest assessment. This board has always been pretty honest with me when we've done well and when we haven't. It's good to know.
I just wanted to add in there, we did bring that up and we had a really good laugh on it because before they added color to it, I was like, it kind of looks like a Costco. So we need to do something to make sure it matches the rest of our campus. So we had that Costco joke going on.
Perfect. I almost said the same thing. I almost said Costco on the back, but okay, good.
And just another thing, we made sure that we would not be eliminating any parking.
Trustee Griffin.
Yeah, I'm in rare form tonight. My only complaint is that it's not the pit. For those of you that remember the pit, which was several gyms ago, it is not the pit. It is a nice design. My questions mainly concern cost. And I know there's a 15% contingency on that. Is that on hard cost and soft cost?
It's primarily on hard costs. There are a few things, contracts that adjust based on costs, like architect fees and DSA fees, but it's primarily on hard costs. It's just with the cost of petroleum directly impacts construction so heavily that we've got 10% on the design. We're only carrying 5% on the construction cost. Because traditionally in lease back, that's adequate on a new building. But trying to predict what's going to happen between now and next March, I wish I had a better crystal ball.
So one of the questions and the materials, did we, there's shortages on everything in the world. And when we did the design work, did we consider the availability of materials or the potential for shortages that would cause delays in designing?
So one of the things that we talked about there heavily, probably the biggest headache that we've got right now is equipment such as HVAC equipment and electrical switchgear and stuff. And there's only so many options. But one of the things that we discussed was whether to tie it into a central plant with the boiler and a chiller. And the lead time right now on chillers is 60 months, potentially. So we didn't look at that. We're looking at kind of off the rack package units for our HVAC equipment, trying to standardize things as much as we possibly can. Gymnasiums, while it's possible to do them out of wood, they're primarily a steel structure. The idea is that we get our design completed early enough that we can order materials as part of pre-construction services with our leaseback contractor.
Well, for a second, Todd, you had me cringing because I hope we don't under-design the HVAC in a place that's just going to be warm and hot and muggy and
no, by no means.
No, I said for a minute there. The other thing, with the cost escalation, I guess if we use up all the money that's on the project, we could go to the old infamous topside contingency. Does anybody know how much money we got in that topside cookie jar?
Yes. We keep that,
keeps that pretty close to his vest. Yeah.
With just the Citizens Oversight Committee. No, the topside contingency is 5% of the overall, and we haven't gone into that yet. At Mr. Lee's presentation at the last board meeting, the last slide noted where we are at projects to date, and we are actually positive by about $11 million, even with the addition of the solar project, which was noted earlier. So we do have a little bit of flexibility there, but as Mr. Lee was noting, that flexibility is drying up. And so we're going to have to be careful as we move forward. I think it was important to note that there wasn't any scope creep on this project. So the scope of this project is the scope that was envisioned. And given that this is one of the, 4 or 5 kind of spotlight projects in the bond that we felt it was important to move forward with the scope, given that we did have that money, that $11 million to the positive that we've been so far. The other thing that I will note is we have that 15% contingency. We will do everything we can after fixing the north side up a little bit, as Trustee Land noted, to hopefully put that back into the pile, into the contingency as we move forward. So,
Okay,
a great question.
okay, thank you.
I liked the project. I like the design quite a bit. I was just curious, what's the $100,000 in miscellaneous? Yeah. In the budget.
So that's typically for things that we don't foresee. It's usually most of it ends up falling to the bottom line, but occasionally we get something. Typically, it's a jurisdictional requirement or something that is discretionary spending that will go to that doesn't fit into any of the major categories.
Oh, okay. No, I thought the project looked quite attractive, and I like the location where you put it. I thought that was a good location for it. So, do we actually need to vote?
Yes.
We need to vote on this.
I move that we approve the schematic design, budget, and schedule for San Mateo High School Gymnasium, Auxiliary Gymnasium project.
Second. Even though I said it first.
Well, I got it all out.
Okay, we have a motion from Trustee Dwyer, second from Trustee Land. How do you vote, Trustee Griffin?
Yes.
Trustee Land?
Yes.
Trustee Dwyer?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So that is approved. The motion is approved 4-0.
Yep. Good job.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you again.
Good to see you again. Okay. I think nothing specifically under construction. Division of Human Resources, approval of personnel actions.
Personnel actions and addendum. We have a retirement longevity to recognize. Jose Kutahar, a school plan operations lead at San Mateo High School, is retiring at the end of the day on July 8th. There are a few appointments that we'd like to mention. David Moore will be the new assistant, or is recommended as the new assistant principal at Aragon High School. And then we have 2 recommendations for assistant principals at Mills High School, Jonathan White and Eric Ding.
I make a motion to approve the personnel actions.
Second.
Did we lose our president?
Uh-oh, where'd he go?
I think he thought the meeting's over now. Wait.
No, he dropped into participants.
I'm moving him back. Here he
Oops,
comes.
he's coming back. Poor Peter. Peter, where goest thou?
Sorry, Peter.
Welcome back.
I think Linda was trying to take over, just so you know.
I am vice president, you know. Coin
Sorry.
toss.
So
Coin
someone
toss.
kicked me down to the attendees.
Not me.
I'm telling you, it was Linda, but that's okay. The motion,
Sorry,
was by me. The motion was by me. The second was by Robert.
Okay. How do you vote, Trustee Griffin?
Yes.
Trustee Land?
I'll go with the old guy. Yes.
Trustee Dwyer?
Yes. Not
And-
nice, Greg.
And I vote yes also. Okay, I think we are down to N2 has been pulled off and will be brought back on the 9th. Board operations, review and discuss the specific board policies and administrative regulations for March 2022. Did anyone have any comments on those?
No,
No.
easy.
So they can go on consent on June 9th?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I was just getting him back for the age and the beauty thing. That's all.
Oh, okay. But he got it backwards.
You think I care?
I know you don't.
There
I'm
were
joking
more,
around.
there were more old guys in this meeting tonight than we've seen all year.
I hear you. I hear you.
Okay, I think we are finished.
No, I think we're done.
We're finished, that's for
we
sure.
are so done.
Hey, it's only 9:11. Should we hang
That's
out another
awesome.
hour?
I was hoping for a little earlier, but we're good.
Okay,
Thank you all.
we're adjourned.
Have a good one, everybody. Good
Good
night.
night.
Good
Where'd
night.
Kevin go?